You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Episode 8, Ulterior Motives, written by Wendy Herman, read by Wendy Herman. I decided it was time Trevor and I had it out, before our estrangement got any stranger. I was feeling pretty good about my mediation skills after practically setting up a lunch date between Lars and Talia myself earlier that day, while making Lars think it was all his idea. Okay, I guess that's more coercion, technically, but either way, I was confident I could get the Trevor who loved and adored me to return. Then we could murder the new cold, insensitive Trevor together. Ah, romance. I decided to make his second favorite dinner. I didn't want it to be too obvious I had a diabolical plan, and was just putting the beef strips in the fridge to marinate when the boys got home from school. I had to admit it was nice to be there for them, as I watched them spread their homework out on various surfaces in the kitchen. I would miss this when I was officially a working gal again. Rowan's homework was to find something that started with the letter of the week and bring it to school the next day. This week's letter was L, so we quickly found a small stuffed lion and put it in his backpack. He was happy and skipped off to play in his room. Blaze was learning about slavery in America in the 1800s and had to do a timeline worksheet. As I hovered for a second, glancing over his shoulder, it was obvious he didn't need any help from me, thank the maker. I wandered over to Levi in the atrium, where he was typing up his final draft report on Marie Antoinette. I was very impressed with it, having read it a few nights before, and I think he was too. He had found a ton of information on the real French queen, and had given, I thought, sufficient proof that the famous phrase accredited to her was a case of ugly rumor becoming history. I gave a deep, satisfied sigh and smiled at him, giving his shoulder a gentle squeeze as he typed. It felt good when they actually listened to me and valued my advice. By the time Trevor made an appearance, homework was done and put away, supper was minutes from being ready to eat, and I had showered and even put a little makeup on, a very rare occurrence. Trevor walked in and tossed his keys in the basket hanging on the wall. He sighed with fatigue and gave me a half-hearted hi. As he emptied his pocket of his cell phone, wallet, and some change, and placed it all on the kitchen counter, he must have noticed the mood in the house had changed, because he suddenly looked up. He looked at me, not smiling, but quizzically, and looked around the kitchen. "Are we celebrating?" he asked. "Just you coming home," I responded mysteriously. He suppressed a grin, but I could see it in his eyes. "What's going on?" he asked in a suspicious tone. I walked toward him and put my arms around his waist. "Well, homework is done. It's not bath night, and I made beef and broccoli for supper." He raised an eyebrow, a recessive trait only Rowan had inherited from his father, and waited. Finally, I cracked. "I thought, after supper, we could talk about, I struggled to form my plan into words. To my surprise, he let out a sigh of relief and wrapped his arms around me. "Okay," was all he said, but his eyes spoke volumes. He leaned down and kissed me gently, and I felt a jolt of electric current run through my entire body. I loved that he could still do that to me. Finally alone in our bedroom, Trevor started kissing me, and actually managed to get my shirt off before I stopped him. Men, no matter how long I'd known him, it still surprised me when he translated talk to mean sex. It had to be so much easier to be a lesbian. A woman would never make that mistake. It just reconfirmed my belief that the whole Venus-Mars thing was right on the money. I gently pushed him away. "Trevor, talk first, then—" "Well, we'll see." He laughed and kissed me one more time. "All right, I missed you." He really needed to stop saying random awesome things like that, or I would never be able to get out what had been weighing on my mind these past weeks. "I've missed you too, but our relationship, our marriage and partnership is more than physical, right?" I asked. "Of course, I just meant—" He trailed off, unable to find the words. "I know," I reassured him, and I did. We sat on our bed, and I started. "I want to be an FBI agent. I'm going to be one. It feels right, like I was meant to do this. I paused, waiting for him to comment. When he didn't, I continued. I need to know that I have your support in this. I took his hand in mine, but couldn't bring myself to look at him just yet. I know you're worried I might fail, and how that would affect me, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life, at least not since you asked me to marry you. I knew I was cheating, but his silence was making me nervous. I decided to wait until he responded. So I waited. And waited. 60 seconds seemed like an eternity. Then he inhaled. I was a jerk. I know that. I had no intention of making you feel like you shouldn't pursue your dreams. I was just scared, I guess. I love our life, and I didn't want it to change, but I didn't consider that, as happy as I am, maybe you aren't as happy. I mean, as you could be. The words coming out of his mouth were more beautiful than anything I'd ever heard in my life. I was dumbstruck, so he kept talking. I want you to be happy, and if that means more eating out and hiring a cleaning lady, then that's what we'll do. And if I fail and decide next month that I want to take voice lessons and start an 80s band? He turned to me, and in a split second I was sitting in his lap. His physical strength was such a turn-on. I felt that electricity shoot through me again. Then I'll turn the garage into a recording studio and grow a mullet. But you won't fail. You've never failed at anything you really wanted to do. He kissed my forehead. Thank you, was all I could say in response, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. We hadn't just murdered Trevor the jerk. We had disposed of the body and left no evidence behind. Good riddance. I'd say that's enough talking, I said with renewed enthusiasm, and pushed Trevor back onto the bed. It was nice when Venus and Mars were in alignment. Trevor decided to take a shower before going to bed, so I snuck downstairs for a little post-coitus snack. I stepped into the dimly lit kitchen and headed for the fridge. Just as I grabbed the door handle, I noticed Trevor's phone on the counter. The screen was lit up. A text had just come in. I opened the fridge, then I closed the fridge, nothing turning my fancy. I finally decided on a whole-grain bagel, which I toasted and topped with a generous serving of Nutella, my favorite late-night snack. I was letting the bagel cool when Trevor's phone vibrated and lit up again. Another text? I slowly walked over to where his phone was lying and picked it up. I instantly realized that it wasn't Trevor's phone, at least not the phone I remembered. My mind raced for a second, but I took a deep breath and told myself he must have just gotten a new one, without me, and for free. Nothing had shown up in our finances, and I was meticulous with our money. So, it must be a new work phone. That was it. I took another deep breath and grinned at my paranoia. Silly Freya, making something out of nothing. I was about to set it down. I wasn't the type to read his texts, especially work-related ones, when something on the lit-up screen caught my eye. It was the number the text had originated from. Talia's number. No, that's not right. I looked again, scanning each digit carefully. It was my best friend's number, on my husband's secret phone. I let out a nervous laugh, feeling the butterflies awaken in the pit of my stomach. I was being paranoid again, wasn't I? I mean, talk about the oldest cliché in the book. I moved my eyes to the body of the text and read, Spoke to AR. Has assignment changed? Will continue mission until told otherwise. AM.
You're listening to Big World Network.